I'm Abby.
And I'm Ellie.
And we're the Queers for Fears podcast.
We're here, we're queer, and we've been best friends for over 25 years.
We cover a wide range of topics, from true crime to horror films to urban legends and beyond. We take our research seriously, but each other, not so much.
If you're creepy, if you're queer, if you just need more LGBTQ podcasts in your ears, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon, Queers for Fears Podcast, or on Twitter at Queers Fears Pod.
Patreon patrons get up to 3 bonus episodes per month, on top of our usual episodes, uploaded every Tuesday and available wherever you get your podcasts.
What is up, y'all?
Hey, y'all.
She's Christina.
She's Mary.
This is TCDY. Sit down.
You don't have to.
Yeah. Or you could just, clean and listen
to
to
podcasts
us.
while I clean. So.
Yeah. Or just, while you're trying to go to sleep. Anyways, here's the intro.
Welcome back.
We're back again.
Yeah. Don't have too much other than the deodorant is worn off under one arm. It's the closest one to you.
Great. I'm glad that
I can't help it. I don't know. I don't know why it just gave out. Maybe I didn't put enough under that arm. Maybe it's too much information, but
That's okay. I can't smell you thus far.
I got my arms.
That's good.
Cupped.
Maybe we should maybe we need a good deodorant company to sponsor us.
Yeah, sponsor us.
Please,
I thought I was
for me.
using good deodorant. I was using the clinical strength. I mean, but it's been on since really early this morning. So anyway, no biggie. Any business we have to discuss? Anything new?
Not really. No business that I can recollect.
Okay, cool. Then we can jump into the case.
Let's go.
Okay, I felt like we need to take a break from child murder.
Definitely.
We've been doing that for a while, and
God,
it's getting
yeah.
kind of depressing.
Yeah.
So no children were killed in this case.
Yay.
I mean, and it's not even so much true crime. It is. I think there is a little bit of crime in there, but it's involving some sort of supernatural type stuff.
So
and
now
just
we're
a
getting
real,
into the ghostly stuff.
Yeah, it's just really eerie. Okay, so this week I am covering the tragic life and death of Robert Johnson. You know who Robert Johnson is?
I don't. Why don't you tell me?
It's probably the most common name ever. I mean, there's probably
John Smith?
Yeah, it's like that. It's probably 50,000 people on Facebook or whatever. But I'm referring to the blues musician Robert Johnson. He has been called the king of the Delta blues, the master of the blues. And he is said to have inspired many musicians, including Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, among others. So, yeah, he has a pretty big influence out there. Although he didn't receive a lot of notoriety and commercial success in his lifetime. And he died at a really young age.
How young?
27.
Yeah, that's young.
So he is actually considered the first member of the 27 Club.
The 27 Club.
Yeah. Let me give you a little more information about Robert. Robert Johnson was born on May 8th, 1911 in Hazelhurst, Mississippi. He was born to his mother, Julia Dodds. Now, Julia had been married to a somewhat wealthy farmer and carpenter named Charles Dodds.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just go ahead and mention these people are black.
Okay.
Charles Dodds, this is Deep South, 1930s, and several white people are envious of his success. So he ends up running away to Memphis to escape being lynched.
They were going to lynch him?
Yeah, they were coming for him. So, he fled. He escaped. And I guess he left Julia there. Now, I don't really blame him for running off, but I don't know why he didn't take his wife, and I don't know why, he didn't leave her money or whatever. But it left her destitute. So she was in a state of poverty. She was forced to kind of live in this small shack. And so she hooks up with a guy that works at a lumber mill by the name of Noah Johnson. And this is how she gets pregnant with Robert. Well, let me say during this time, most people, especially if you were black in the South, you didn't really have a lot of job opportunities.
Right.
So most people back then in this area were pretty much limited to like field work.
Right.
Working in fields or whatnot. So when Julia eventually remarries and Robert gets a stepfather, it is said that his stepfather is very abusive to him, that he beats him. But the reason that he's beating him, not that there's a good reason for child abuse or anything, but the reason is that Robert pretty much just refuses to work the fields.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to waste my life doing that shit. Like, I'm meant to do something more. He always felt like he was meant to do something else.
Hell yeah.
And so, I mean, this kid pretty much gets the short end of the stick very early in life. Like, all the odds are stacked against him. I mean, he's born black. He's born poor. He's born in fucking Mississippi.
Out of all places,
yeah,
the most racist
and he's
place.
illegitimate. Yeah, so it's like not looking good for him. And, you know, he's refusing to work in the fields. He feels like he can do something else. He can do better. So, I mean, this is not a culture that is like, you need to chase your dreams or, you know, shoot for the stars or follow your heart or whatever. They're not about that. They're like, no, you need to keep your head down and you need to keep your feet on the ground and pretty much do what you're told.
Right. You're going to go along with everybody else.
Yeah, they're like, so Robert, what do you want to do when you grow up? Let's see, you can work in the fields or you can work in the fields or, yeah, you can work in the fields.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty much his only option. And he didn't seem to get that. Sometime in his teenage years, he gets like a really cheap guitar and he starts kind of picking at it. And he had discovered the blues, more specifically the Delta blues, which was pretty much started by field workers.
Right.
So, like in the Deep South, these people were getting together and singing and playing their instruments, you know, a lot of times in the fields themselves. And then, of course, they would entertain on the weekends and whatnot. As the blues is growing increasingly popular, it's kind of getting a bad rap, too. People are referring to this as the devil's music.
Yeah.
And what this most likely came from was men, more specifically, would hang out late at night on the weekends in like these juke joints or whatnot, listening to blues music, listening to and playing blues music. Well, Sunday morning, they wouldn't want to go to church. So the women would usually go. So the preacher would look and see just a bunch of women in his congregation. And back then, the man usually kept the money. So they weren't really giving a lot of offerings and tithes.
Right.
So the church and the preacher were not making any money. So the preacher started like preaching against blues music and calling it the devil's music.
Because they weren't getting as much money
Because they weren't making any
wanted.
money. So they're telling these women, like, hey, you need to go home and you need to tell your husband or your brother, your dad, whatever, that they need to get their ass in church and quit listening to the devil's music or they're going to go straight to hell. Robert is like in love with blues music and he's determined to learn how to play it. So he gets him this little guitar and he starts kind of, I'm thinking he pretty much kind of teaches himself, you know?
Yeah.
And then pretty soon he's going out to larger towns or cities and he's trying to be like a street musician. He's pretty much just playing on street corners for pocket change. And he kind of makes like a very modest living off of this. I don't even know how he survived off of it, but he does that for a while. But then at the age of 18, he meets a 15-year-old girl named Virginia, and the two run off and get married.
Okay.
And he makes a promise to Virginia. He tells Virginia that he's going to give up the blues, he's going to give up his music, and that he's going to get like a legit field job and he's going to take care of her and be a good husband and family man. Well, not long after they're married, Virginia gets pregnant. And when she's about 6 months along, she goes off to her grandmother's house to give birth. I don't know why. Probably because Robert didn't know anything about babies.
Right. Or
you know, she's 15 years old or 16 or whatever, but she probably wants to be around, you know, her family.
Right.
Scary time. But anyway, so she takes off at 6 months pregnant and Robert's supposed to join her when it's time for the baby to arrive. Well, as the saying goes, when the cat's away, the mice will rock out.
Oh, is that what it goes?
That's totally how it goes. It's
Okay.
like there are tons of mice bands out there, but they only play when the cat's not around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Robert decides after she's gone to hit the road again and start, you know, playing on his street corners. And he's going to do this for a couple months. And then when it's time for Virginia to have the baby, he's going to be back there in time to see his kid be born.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this doesn't really work out. So, I mean, he hitchhikes and he's playing the street corners, but he doesn't get back to Virginia in time. And by the time he gets to her at her grandmother's, her and the baby have already died and been buried.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they both died in childbirth.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. And so he finds this out. And not only that, her family completely blames him for her death.
He wasn't even there.
Well, for one, I guess he got her pregnant. I guess give it that. I mean, and two, he was off playing the devil's music.
Oh.
And that's how people saw stuff back then. So after the death of his beloved wife and his baby, he decides to just like throw himself into his music career. So again, he takes to the streets and he's, being a street musician. But then he hears the music of another pretty well-known blues musician by the name of Son House and his partner, Willie Brown. And he wants to be just like them. So what does he do? He crashes their concerts. So he would go into like the juke halls that they were playing, or the juke joints. I'm sorry, they called them juke joints. He would go into these juke joints while they were playing, and like when they would take a set break, he would just like pick up guitars and start strumming and, trying to get people to notice him.
Yeah.
And I guess he was not as good as he thought he was because people just hated the shit. I mean, and people were telling Son House and Willie Brown, like, hey, can y'all, like, get this guy out of here? Like, he's just aggravating us.
Yeah.
And so they pretty much had to tell him to leave. They're like, dude, you suck. Like, you got to go. So he leaves and he's like got his tail between his legs or whatever. And he stays gone for a while. He pretty much disappears. Like nobody on this blues scene sees him or hears from him for like about a year and a half.
Yeah.
A year and a half later, he walks back into the same juke joint, and they're like, oh, God, Robert's back.
Robert's here.
Oh, hell, he's coming back to annoy us again. We thought he was dead or whatever. And, they're like giving him hell, and he's like, look, just give me a shot. And they're like, okay, we'll give you a shot. So he pulls out the same guitar, and he's added an extra string to it. So it was a 6-string guitar, and now it has 7 strings. And he starts playing, and he's the best goddamn blues musician anybody's ever heard.
Hell yeah.
I mean, to cite Sublime, the man could play the guitar like a motherfucking riot. Yeah, and everybody's just standing around like with their jaw dropped, their mouths hanging up, and they're like, how the fuck?
Is this the same guy that sucked?
Yeah, they're
last
like,
year?
how the fuck did he get that good in that short amount of time? Well, there are 2 explanations for this.
Of course, because there's got to be an explanation, right?
So, like, the more plausible one is that when he, left, he went back to his hometown of Mississippi. And I guess he was doing some soul searching and he was trying to find his biological father. Mm-hmm. Well, he never found him, but he did run into a blues musician by the name of Ike Zimmerman. And Ike Zimmerman was known to be like the best guitar player in Mississippi. So Zimmerman takes Robert under his wing and he tells him like, I'm going to teach you how to play the guitar. So he spends quite a bit of time with him. And Ike Zimmerman had a unique way of training. He felt like the best place to learn the blues was to go into the cemetery late at night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he said if you went out to the cemetery around midnight, then the ghost would come out and like teach you how to play the blues. Interesting guy. So, I mean, of course they see these guys like hanging out in the cemetery. Everybody thinks they're creepy as fuck or whatever. But that's what they would do. Robert and Ike, they would go to a cemetery late at night. They would sit on headstones. And Zimmerman taught him everything he knew. Of course, Robert would just practice and kind of like add his own spin on it. And he got really good.
Yeah. So he pretty much devoted all his time to it.
I mean, so like the guy was pretty much just working his ass off.
To get
and
better.
I mean, that's like the recipe for success, right? It's
Practice
like,
makes perfect too.
Yeah, it's like, you don't quit. You just work your ass off. You learn everything you can. Mm-hmm. And I mean, just persistence and hard work will eventually pay off, right?
Absolutely. That's why we keep doing this shit.
Yeah. Well, haters gonna hate.
Haters gonna hate.
Nobody's really buying that he just learned how to play guitar from a really good guitar player and practiced and became good himself.
Robert's haters have arrived.
The haters have arrived. A rumor starts to circulate, and this rumor would end up being legend. And it goes something like, he sold his soul to the devil to get his talent.
Yeah.
So with this legend, supposedly he went out to the Crossroads in Mississippi and met Satan there, because that's where you meet the big red guy. If anybody wants to know, if you want to have a conversation with Satan or whatever, like go to these Crossroads in Mississippi. He's there.
Just, okay.
Yeah, he's like got like a little farm stand.
Is it Satan or Satin? Which one is it?
No, I'm pretty sure it's like the real Satan.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got like a farm stand out there, and he sells like hell-grown peppers and buy souls.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you can just go do trade-ins up there.
Yeah, you can
All
do
right.
trades or whatnot. Bring him what you got. He'll let you know what he can do.
Cool.
Anyway.
So he's a
So
pawnbroker.
Robert goes to these Crossroads, and he meets up with Satan, and he takes his guitar, and he kneels down before Satan, and he lays his guitar on the ground. Well, Satan picks it up and starts tuning it, and he hands it back to Robert. But he tells Robert, if you take this guitar back, your soul is mine. Do you want it? And Robert's like, fuck yeah. And so he takes it, and all of a sudden he has all this talent.
Yeah.
So
that came from Satan.
Yeah. So that was like what was circulating around about him.
Hi, I'm Grant,
And I'm Erica.
and we're the hosts of
From Crime to Crime, a weekly true crime podcast that covers a wide range of crimes.
including unsolved murders, serial killers, prison breaks, skyjackings, missing persons.
And John and Jane Does,
So don't forget to join us every Wednesday for a brand new.
or sometimes old case.
You can find From Crime to Crime on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Yeah. So he kind of
And this was before the internet. What?
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I mean, word travels fast, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, he gets, pretty famous or popular in his area.
Yeah.
It's not like he could go viral. So, I mean, there's not much he can do. But, I mean, he's pretty known in this area. And, like every juke joint or whatever wants him to play there.
Yeah.
So he's making a good living. And, he's doing okay. And then he falls in love again with a woman named Coletta. And she ends up getting pregnant. Well, he wants to run away with her. I mean, he wants her to come with him and marry her. Well, her parents are very religious, and they're like, no, we're not letting our daughter run off with someone who supposedly sold his soul to the devil and is playing the devil's music.
Well, she's already knocked up by him, so it's a little too late.
I mean, but no, they weren't having it. So, I mean,
Okay.
he was pretty much screwed out of love again. So he kind of like goes down this like downward spiral somewhat, and he's drinking heavily and womanizing quite a bit.
Oh, so he's seeing multiple women.
Multiple women, yeah. And during this time, he does make a couple of recordings, but in total, there were only like 29 tracks. So he only ever recorded 29 tracks.
Yeah.
So everything gets like really kind of bad for him because, like I said, he's drinking, he's womanizing or whatnot. So he ends up one night, he's at one of these juke joints and he buys some liquor from the bar. Well, supposedly he had been sleeping with or trying to sleep with one of the bartender's wives.
Okay.
Okay. When he gets this bottle of liquor, it's opened. It's like supposed to be a brand new bottle of liquor, but it's already been opened.
Mm-hmm.
So one of his friends like snatches the bottle out of his hand, says like, you don't ever drink a bottle of liquor that's been opened. Robert snatches it back and says, and you don't ever snatch a $7 bottle of liquor out of my hands. And he chugs that shit.
Right.
It's been said that like later that night, he gets extremely sick. He's kind of like just slumped down in a corner the whole night. And then, he leaves and of course, like he's nauseated. He's just not doing well at all. And a couple days later, he dies on August 16th, 1938 at the age of 27.
So this is all the way back in the 30s.
Yeah. At the time, nobody even really looked into his death.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, Robert just died or whatever. But it's, widely known or people believe, even though like the police were notified at the time of what had happened, like nobody really cared.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a racial thing, like even black people didn't care because, I mean, he played the devil's music. That's how a lot of people saw that.
Yeah.
They really didn't do anything about his death. They didn't do a formal investigation or an autopsy. And the death certificate wasn't actually like found until the 1960s. like I said before, he didn't really achieve a lot of commercial success during his lifetime.
So he got really popular after he died.
He did. Okay. When a record producer by the name of John Hammond, a year after Robert's death, he really wanted Robert to come to New York to play Carnegie Hall because he had heard his music and he was going to do like a collection of blues, but he wanted people in that area, he wanted people to know how big of an influence Robert Johnson had.
Yeah.
And he wanted the people to realize, like, this is real blues. This is the real Delta blues. So Robert Johnson, so he sends a scout down to Mississippi. And of course, the scout learns that Robert's died.
Yeah.
So he never got to play Carnegie Hall. But John Hammond was still determined to like put him in there. During this concert, at one point on the stage, they had, what is that thing called? It's like a phonograph, or it's like the old-timey record players, with like the big horn on it. You can picture it, right?
With the big horn?
Yeah, it's like a big speaker thing. I could show you a picture of it. I think it's called a phonograph, but I'm not sure. But it's like a really old-timey record player.
Okay.
So he's got this thing just sitting on the middle of the stage. And he comes over to it and he starts the music. And it's Robert Johnson. And people are just astonished. Like they never heard him before. And they're like, this is like the best blues music we've ever heard.
Yeah.
So after that, he had done his recordings with a music company by the name of Brunswick Records. And they owned the recordings of Robert Johnson. But eventually Columbia bought out the collection and they assembled a collection called King of the Delta Blues and re-released it.
Columbia Records?
Yeah.
Cool.
And then, of course, he achieved wide commercial success.
It sucks that he wasn't alive to see that shit.
I know.
Because he worked so hard for it.
Right. Well, with him dying the way he did and the way he lived and him dying at the age of 27, he is thought to be the first member of the 27 Club, which of course includes, most of them are musicians, but I think they've thrown like some actors and whatnot, or some actors in there. I think they've extended it to like entertainment. Period. Yeah. So this includes people like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, and I think Heath Ledger's also in there.
Was he 27 when
I
he
think
passed?
he was 27. I'm pretty sure he's in the 27
That
Club. We'll have to look it
devastated
up.
me.
Yeah, but I mean, what they realized about like this 27 Club is they were all people that were kind of living recklessly or were dealing with their own demons.
Yeah. They really were, if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Because look at Amy Winehouse.
Yeah.
She had very bad drug addiction problems. So did Kurt Cobain. So did Janis Joplin.
Yeah.
So
not just that. I mean, I'm sure there was just like a ton of mental health issues behind that.
Right.
But just the way that they were living kind of contributed to their deaths. But they were all immensely talented and they all reached success pretty early in life.
Right.
And that whole group is just an eerie, morbid thing anyway.
Because they're some of the legends. They're some of the best.
Right, and they're so talented, but it's like their star burns out way too soon.
Yeah.
So Robert did have a son, and his name was Claude Johnson, but he never really knew his father because, him playing the devil's music or whatever.
So was this from the girl?
This is from Coletta.
Okay.
This is from like the second, one that he tried to have a life with.
Yeah.
And of course, her parents would not really allow him to come around. So they would not allow him to be in his son's life. Now, his son recalled seeing him maybe a few times, but he said he would recall his dad like coming to his grandparents' house and trying to see him, but his grandfather would always send him away. But he said that he had noticed Robert giving his grandfather money and saying, like, give this to my son. So, I mean, obviously he was trying to do the right thing.
Right.
And they felt like there was a part of Robert that really wanted to have a normal life. But at the same time, it kind of came down between normal life and his beloved blues music. And the blues always seemed to win.
Well, it was making him a living too, so.
But still, there's like a lot of talk, a lot of mystery surrounding Robert, whether he really sold his soul to the devil or not. I mean, a lot of people, still believe that. It's still just a legend. And when you listen to his music, because you can listen to his music, he's on Apple Music.
Is he?
Yeah, you can check him out on Apple Music. Now, of course, the audio is not that good because, these are really early recordings. And they've tried to remaster them, but it's still just not that great. Have you ever seen the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how, like, they recorded Man of Constant Sorrow, and they're like,
Yeah.
a man paid me to sing into this can. That's how I picture like these recordings that Robert Johnson did. But you can check it out. And you can definitely see, because I'm a pretty big Stones fan, so you can definitely hear the influence from his music in like the Rolling Stones music.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Pretty
I
cool.
can't believe I've never heard of this guy. And I feel terrible because I'm a big music buff too. So
I think there are a lot of people that haven't heard of him, but I mean, he's influenced the blues. And of course, that kind of continues on. It's like if you influence one group, well, then somebody else is going to be influenced by that group, and it's just going to continue
right.
through others. But also his, lyrics could get a little morbid themselves. And that's kind of what the blues was, in a way. And of course, growing up in the South or being in the South in the 1920s and 30s, there's a lot of religion and superstition. And he would talk about things in his lyrics that kind of made references to hoodoo. I don't know if you know what hoodoo is.
Is it like voodoo?
It kind of. It originated in the South. It originated amongst African Americans. Mm-hmm. And it's like a form of magic, just like, I guess it's hard to describe, but it was kind of formed as a way to kind of give them power because at the time they really didn't have any.
Yeah.
Because they were constantly fearing like lynch mobs.
Right.
And someone killing them. And when these people would be murdered, like nobody really did anything about it. So, of course, they lived in constant fear. And you can hear a lot about that in Robert Johnson's lyrics, too. At this time, they weren't even trying to really, like, go against all of this. They were just trying to survive.
Right.
But, yes, in several of his songs, he makes these references to, like, hoodoo. Like, I think one was, like, putting pepper at your door, and it was supposed to deter bloodhounds that, sometimes the KKK or people in these lynch mobs would use to track down these people.
So throwing pepper.
It's like, yeah, it's like some kind of pepper. But like I said, he does make a few references to this. And this form of magic, like I said, they feel like it kind of came about as a way to, give the black people during this time and in this place some power because they didn't have any. And I guess they felt like if I have something supernatural on my side, then I'll be protected.
That's interesting.
It is interesting.
It's sad, though. I mean,
it is sad because, he could have lived into, like, I don't know, the 80s, 90s, maybe even early 2000s.
He could have made a big career.
He could have made a really big career. So, he seems like he was one of the greats. So, may he rest in peace.
Yeah, for sure. He started it all for everybody.
Pretty much. Well, there were other blues musicians before him, but, the way he crafted it.
Do you think Elvis took after him a little bit, too?
I don't know. I didn't see him as being one of those that were influenced. Now, it said that, he did have rock and roll influences, no, I didn't see anything about Elvis. I get, that Elvis was from Mississippi too, but I don't think they hung out or anything.
Yeah.
Anywho, so that's our mini episode of the tragic life and death of blues singer Robert Johnson.
Well, I enjoyed that story.
Yeah.
So we've released 2 minis back to back. So that just means we're going to hit you guys with a 2-parter.
Yeah, we have a 2-parter coming up. Yeah, so we're going to get that out to you guys really soon. So we figured we'd throw some kind of, well, your case wasn't light, but this is kind of light.
Yeah,
it's not that bad. So
I always get the heavy ones, man.
Right.
I don't know what it is. It's that morbid in me that I want to get out. I guess,
you got to give the people a break sometimes.
Yeah, I know, but that's why you can sift and shuffle through our episodes.
Yeah, so enjoy your vacation from child murder.
Yes.
I think it's gonna be a while before we talk about child murder.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, for a little bit.
I'm
anyway, all right. So hit us up on Instagram
at TC_Down
Or Facebook.
at www.facebook.com/TC
Our Twitter.
At
Down
Downcrime.
Crime. Shoot us an email at tcdownyonder@gmail.com. Give us your case suggestions, any criticisms you might have, anything you want to add or correct us on.
We're here
or
for
just
it.
let us know what you think. Anyway, yeah, I think that's about it.
Yep. Stay tuned for next week, y'all. We love you guys.
Don't drink open bottles of liquor that are supposed to be new. And don't eat those peppers that Satan sells at his farm stand at the Mississippi Crossroads.
And don't
They
let
will
Satan,
set your ass on fire.
and don't let Satan tune your guitar. Okay, bye.
Or don't take it back from him. All right, bye.